First off, I wanted to say, I really love the training. I love, love, love what you put together. It's so good, and there's nothing else like it. I think you should be really proud of yourself.
I
Um,
appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, I just had a couple questions on products and product variants, and you know how to know when to put them together.
Sure.
Um, because right now I'm working with a client that basically has a bunch of bracelets, and they're all individually ranking well, individual pages,
Hmm.
and I'm not quite sure if I should consolidate all of them and put them together and make one massive like bracelet page that would be like 90 something bracelets and one page, or
Do
if I should
you,
just let them be.
are you able to pull up the, or send me the URL so I can take a look at it?
Yeah, sure. Hang on a second.
Okay. So
All right.
this is WordPress or Shopify?
This is Shopify.
Okay.
So as you can see, there is like,
Yeah, it's a tough, it's a tough call here. Because so when it comes to the total number of SKUs, so you could hypothetically combine this all into one page. Is that what you're saying?
right.
Yeah. So in this case, I probably would not, um,
Mhm.
because if you did, then it would be a one product website, right?
Almost. I mean, there
Yeah.
are, we have other things like, sets here that are like based on the chakras.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if you're super familiar with the chakras, but
I am, especially at a conceptual level. So
okay.
here's what I would say. I would say if they have search volume, like if people are searching for, go back to some of the products so you can just see like a high level. Like if people are searching for like heart chakra, root chakra, um, self-love chakra, stuff like that, then I would say leave them, right? Because
Okay.
if there's enough search volume to, and when I say enough to it, it's all relative because, um, just overall, this isn't going to be like millions of searches a month, right? It might be 10 to 30, whatever it may be. But if there's enough search volume to justify having its own unique page, then I
Hmm.
would say leave each page as it is. I would say combine them when, so like in this case too, it's kind of like if you have shoelaces, right? Shoelaces is an easy example for me because I had that e-commerce site. If you have shoelaces that are varied by size or by color, then you can combine them into one because for the most part, Google will be able to pick up that one type of shoelace has multiple colors, and you don't need its own individual page for that. But in this sense, or in the shoelace sense, if it has a different function, especially a function where people would be searching for it, then I would say use its own individual page. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, and in this case too, like I don't think you don't run the issue of duplicate content. And then also too, like depending on where this site wants to go,
Uh-huh.
like just in terms of like kind of the UX and just kind of like on-site experience. Like if you go to a website and there's only two products, you got to completely shift the way that the website functions, right? But if there's a plan to add more
Hmm.
SKUs and like more types of products aside from bracelets and those little stones that I saw, then I would
Hmm.
say then you might want to consider seeing where you can consolidate some of these bracelets into one single product page. You know what I mean? But like
Okay.
now I come to this and the shopping experience is actually pretty good because if I'm just on this page, I can scroll and I can see not only the different, and again, especially too, if you're coming to this website to purchase something to help with your chakras, then as a user and a consumer that you're going to be looking at the different types of benefits of each one of these bracelets, right?
Right.
And I might not be saying that properly, but as opposed to having to click on one of these bracelets and be like, oh, this one is, and it looks like also too that these are different, like they're not just different colors, they're different materials too, right?
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're
Yeah.
completely different. All of them are completely different. They're all the same size, but they're completely different
Yes.
materials.
So that's a perfect example. If there were different sizes meaning just based on the person's preference, right? That'd be more of like a checkout function. So like if that garnet energy bracelet came in bigger beads, if there was no product function, like for example, if there was a function in terms of like I don't know, and again, I'm probably not saying this properly, but the different effects on your chakras that the size of the bracelet would have, then you might consider having separate pages. But if it's more of a personal preference just for style, then the size would be consolidated via like drop down, right? Kind of like if you're selling a mattress and it could be like queen, king, twin, you would select that kind of when you're buying, but you're going to be searching for a mattress based on kind of like firm, soft, gel, waterbed, etc., stuff like that. So that's what I would say with these is that if I would leave them as they are, because it seems like, number one, they're different from a search point of view. They're also different from like a UX point of view. Just if you're in this space, you know what you're looking for and you know
Right.
how the different materials will function. But if you go to just one of these pages and you've got to hit a drop down, because it would probably be like 30 different drop downs that you would select from, it's probably not going to have the same impact as this. So I would say the way that you have these laid out, these are good.
Okay. Okay. Good. Yeah, I was gonna tell them like that we should do a drop down up here above the bracelets, so that a person can, doesn't have to scroll all the way down to see like, rainbow moonstone or something like that. You know.
Yeah, that would be like a secondary nav or a faceted navigation.
Right. Faceted
And
nav.
that would be, I have an article on our agency website. If you just Google like Weber's faceted navigation, you'll see it. It just
Okay.
talks about the different types of navigation that you can use, and then also the SEO implications of that. Because what can happen with these faceted navigations, and this is where this gets a little bit more challenging, is that right now this is just, it's easy. It's a single collections page, dive right into the products. But when you add in a navigation, what happens is then you also add in different URL strings at the end of the collections pages, right? So when
Okay.
people are adding these different layers of navigation on there, like color, size, function, it will trigger all these different URL strings at the end of that. And you're going to want to use either canonicals or like no index tags to make sure that Google isn't picking those up and indexing those over the root category page. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes. And actually, I had a question about that. So I'm glad that you highlighted that. So if they're adding another couple of sets of bracelets, and so basically sort of like what you were saying, my kind of way of looking at this is if each individual bracelet has enough search volume on its own to justify itself, and then bringing them all together into one major product page has less volume overall than individual, then it makes sense to have them all individual.
Yeah, and I would also say too, now that, again, that was my initial thought, but now that I look at these more, understanding that each one of these, they are a different product, right?
Right.
Because they're a different material, but also to the audience of this website, each of them is essentially a different product. Like the Amazonite is different than the Botswana, right? Just in terms of the function and I'm just assuming, I know the space, I don't know this very well, but again, like I see these as, even though it's a bracelet, even though it's the same size, the function of them is very different to the person who would be buying them, right?
Right.
Which means that they're also going to modify their searches to find these accordingly.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
And
even if they're so in that case, sorry to cut you off, but so in that case too, is that a lot of these might not trigger search volume, but I would still leave them just because the searches are so niche. But I would still leave them as is, because again, always putting yourself in the mind of the searcher, and also just all that Google's doing to just remove this data visibility from us. Just understanding that, again, these products do have a different function to their audience. Like, forget Google for a second. It also just makes it easier for them to find it, and when they come to the website to browse. And again, if you add navigation drop downs on there too, maybe by like function, by color, by size, then it will help them to find it better once on the website. But I would definitely leave these pages as they are. And they're also picking up their own individual reviews, which is a really good sign too, that people are seeing these as, its own
right.
individual product.
And then someone had mentioned to me that when you have one massive product page, instead of writing like, you know, a, just a ton of copy, that you could write a decent amount of copy and then do the rest in schema. Is that sort of how you would approach something where you had like 90 different products on one product page? I'm just
Show me
curious.
one of the products. And they do have different sizes. So that's what I was talking about too, with the sizing, that it's already looks like it's set up properly.
Right.
So my thoughts on this is, it looks like these are set up pretty well too. Again, speaking specifically to the specifics of this product. So here's my thoughts on that. Like, yes, there's definitely some ways that you can automate products. For a website this size, I don't think you have to per se. I'm always just a fan of writing product descriptions for the individual product and for the end user, like they've done here. These people understand that, again, this black agate energy bracelet has a specific function, and that's why they're able to write unique product descriptions for it. A lot of the times when you use more of the dynamic or schema injected product descriptions, it's something for a lot more basic, like a glass cup. Like how unique can you make this
Okay.
description when you're if you're a vendor selling 10,000 different types of glass cups. But again, these products have a very specific benefit based on, that in terms of like the energy, in terms of the gem type, in terms of the color,
Right.
that which they're able to clearly demonstrate. If you scroll down a little bit, they're able to write not only that little quote right there, but then also a very specific description of the stone, what the stone does. And I think that's more than enough. Like, I think you don't want to write too much in product descriptions. It's kind of like a misconception to add more. I think that,
Right.
you get to the point, you distinguish, again, like always put yourself in the shoes of the consumer, is that if you're looking at between this one and another bracelet, you want to be able to clearly distinguish, like, why, like if you're in the space, you're looking for this type of product, like, help me understand the difference between me buying this one and this one. Like, what are the distinctions, not just in terms of like the size and the color, but if I buy this, what does this one do for my shocker versus the other one, right? Which it seems like they did a pretty good job of explaining
Right.
that in these
Okay.
descriptions.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I've helped them do everything on this site. And so it just suddenly occurred to me the other day. I was like, oh shit, should these all be on one product page?
Mhm.
So I was
That's
having,
it's a very good question, though. A very
yeah,
common one too.
yeah, I mean, I could tell it was just, there's not a whole lot of direct information about, products and product variants, about when to do what and where.
Hmm.
Um, so it seemed like a little bit more nebulous. And so I was like, I got to get on the phone with Ryan.
Sure.
But
And there's a reason why there's not good information on it. It's because there's no right answer, because it has to be asked again at the website and also the product level, right?
okay,
Like, again, it's much different for a website like this versus a website that's like a general retailer versus one that's selling. It completely depends. So, I always
right.
tell people, like, SEO aside, like, if you are in market for a product like this, like, what are you looking for on a page? Like, what are you looking for on like the UX? Like, what are you looking for? Like, again, I think this is well laid out, whether it's intentional or not. um, I think this is laid out well for this industry for sure, in this audience.
Okay, cool. All right. And then one more, how do you approach, header tags for product pages? Because obviously here we have like H1, but do you have any kind of like formula that you use for like H2, H3 in product descriptions?
Mhm. It can be a little bit tough to modify with a platform like Shopify.
Yeah,
But like, generally speaking, it would be just like a blog post, right?
right.
The product title should be H1.
Mhm.
And then everything underneath it should be H2. But then again, like, again, like, sometimes the benefits of these, depending on what type of resource they have internally, like, do they have a developer who understands not only how to change the description, the details to H2s, but also then how to make sure that it's sized properly too, by changing the CSS, right? Because sometimes if the website will default to the H2 being like a size like 30 font, which is just going to look terrible there. So, I mean, for like, these are things that they do help in their best practices, but like, if these are things that you also got to have, like, understand the use cases when working with clients, and just the business cases too. Like, making these recommendations is one thing, but if a client is like, man, we have to take everything that Ryan says, like, at face value and do it,
Right.
it might actually take them a lot more energy and effort to do this, as opposed to something that, that's actually going to move the needle. So it's on a per client basis. I would say always follow best practices. Like, again, best practices is the on page title should be in H1. Everything underneath that should be in H2. You don't have to get too detailed with like H3s and stuff like that. If you can just stick to H2s, you're good with that, especially on a page like this. When you're getting a blog post and stuff, like, H3s are a little bit different if you have a sub process or a sub point that you're trying to make within a section. But for product pages, I would just say stick to H1, H2s. But again, understanding the client that you're working with and their resources, if they're able to do that easily. If not, then you just make the recommendation and also just have the conversation with them that, hey, sometime down the line, you might want to do this when you have a developer who can do this quickly. But for now, like just prioritize it lower on like the matrix of recommendations that you're making.
Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. And basically the way that I've kind of doing this is like all their articles are sort of pointing back to this main category page as well, in order to pass link juice. And we're going to start adding some more copy to this page so we can start ranking for just, gemstone bracelets.
Yep.
And which that's pretty much how we do it. So,
yep.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. That's pretty much all I had. I'm pretty stoked, man. I used all the methodology, and we're on this website. We're up from 2,000 a month organic to 55,000.